Welcome to Middle School Walk and Talk, a podcast series offering heart, hope, and health to members of our middle school communities. Hosts Phyllis, Fagell, and Jessica McGuire talk all things self-care, student well-being, school culture, and more. Middle School Walk and Talk is designed to support the concepts found in the successful middle school, This We Believe, and is a production of the Association for Middle Level Education. To learn more, visit AMLE.org. Today's episode, Finding Your Voice Between the Echoes, a student's reflection on middle school with guest Brody Cunningham.
Welcome to AMLE Walk and Talk, where we explore what's working and what's inspiring in middle level education. Today, we're happy to be joined by Brody Cunningham. Brody is a ninth grader from Georgia, and he's also the 2025 winner of AMLE's Student Sound Off Contest. Each year, AMLE invites middle school winners of the contest to the conference. Students across the country have submitted different types of projects on issues that matter most to them as middle schoolers. Brody submitted a very powerful narrative, and his reflection on middle school stood out to make him the finalist this year. Brody, you wrote in your narrative, quote, "Being a middle schooler is like standing in the middle of a noisy room, trying to find your voice between the echoes. You hear the worst, the best, the confusing, the constant. But then one day you realize the loudest voice is yours. And maybe that's when you finally start listening." Can you tell us, Brody, a little bit about the message behind your overall submission and also what inspired you to speak about middle school?
Okay, so to your first point about that quote specifically, I feel like that really encapsulated for me just like not necessarily the fear, but being able to overcome, maybe not being able to have a voice or not being able to express yourself in such a large environment. In middle school, it can be a messy place at times, and it's really, for most people, it's hard to conform or find your identity. So that was the main point of me putting that in there, is because I wanted to get that point across that, hey, maybe if you just focus more on yourself and not necessarily the standards, then that can help you form your own standard in a way. So overall, though, my narrative was not necessarily to get the point across that, middle school is hard, but it's a challenge that, once we overcome, it can, shape our character and who we are.
So I'm just listening to you talk, and the relationship between students and teachers is such a big part of middle school. And I'm wondering if there is any teacher in particular who you felt really understood you. And even if it's not somebody, even if it's an amalgam of different teachers, what is it about those teachers that made you feel understood?
This definitely isn't biased, but my teacher here with us, Ms. Kellum, I really was connected to her, not even because of, she was funny and caring, always looking out for me, but just because she really helped give me a stage to really, show off what I'm good at, help me fix any mistakes I had, help me overcome conflict. And it wasn't just her. I had a very good environment for my middle school personally, and I always had people to go to, look towards, teachers that were always there to support me. But back to Ms. Kellum, I didn't even have her as a teacher, but she was always there for, any academic competition I was doing, whether it was, just talking about middle school in general, my friends, dealing with, middle school stuff. And back to what you were saying about other teachers as well, I had a very welcoming community. So if I ever needed to talk to my principal or, vice principals, my core classes, it really just gave me a sense of belonging personally. And I feel like if other students are able to connect with their teachers in that same way, it'll make them feel more comfortable and more willing to, kind of spread their voice or, show who they really are, which is, referring back to my writing.
Yeah, and helping you figure out who you are. And for those who are maybe just listening or who can't see what's going on, but behind us, that teacher that he just spoke so nicely about is filming him and taking photos of him right now. So very proud. It's clearly mutual, the Admiration Society.
Sounds like you had a lot of teachers at your school that were positive role models and mentors, and really listening to your voice. Some teachers who you weren't even in their classroom, they were just in the school space with you. But Brody, do you think, or could you identify a few things that teachers sometimes misunderstand about middle schoolers?
Okay, personally, from my experience, a lot of things that teachers tend to not necessarily forget, but tend to overlook is that at the end of the day, we're all students, and I can't lie, boredom can definitely get the best of you at certain times. Like for me, when I didn't feel challenged or when I wasn't in a room where I feel like I had to give it my all, I would tend to back away or goof off with my friends and whatnot. But for not just me, but other students as well, I feel like that challenge, that roadblock, can really stop you from focusing on what you're trying to learn. And back to your question about what teachers can do to fix this problem, it's not even necessarily on the teachers to begin with, but just to create that sense of belonging and environment that can help students excel already what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if teachers just maybe approach the class with more of like a less serious approach at times, and just allow students to really talk, because now that I'm in high school and I have a very variety of teachers now and different teaching styles. I feel like the ones where the class is most engaged are the teachers that really just let the students collaborate and give them the opportunity to not necessarily teach but learn from each other. So that's that's definitely my pet peeve when it comes to teaching.
Nice.
So earlier today, you were on a stage in front of thousands of middle school educators, and you're really poised, and I'm sure the Brody we see now today in ninth grade has come a long way since you started middle school. And one of the things that you clearly excel at now is talking to adults and helping them understand what's important to kids. Why do you think it's important for students to be sharing these observations and just practical strategies with teachers?
One quote that I feel like I've heard many times is silence creates chaos. So when people aren't communicating, that's when really bad things start to happen. So, and I feel like that's especially important between teachers and students, where that dynamic is really what creates the environment to begin with. So for a student-teacher relationship, I think it's important that you talk to them, because one thing I kind of picked up on is that teachers will really focus on who they feel like they have a connection to. A teacher may or may not be more attentive or maybe show more affection to a student that is able to engage with them. And I won't say it's like always on the teacher, but for most teachers, they can take that first step and maybe just engaging with the student, because I don't feel like I'm like all students, because some people may not have that confidence just to make friendly with the teacher, may not just have the willpower just to make friends with the teacher. So for me, I feel like if that teacher just makes the first step in bridging that communication and bridging that connection, then I feel like that really helps students and teachers get along and maybe even find like their passion necessarily in school and just fitting in the classroom. So when teachers and students are connected tightly, that really helps them learn and building and just have more attention overall, focus on school necessarily.
So open the door for students who aren't going to walk through it on their own.
And that's good advice for your fellow students too. Just a reminder that no matter how things are going in school, whether it's easy for you or hard for you, just trying your hardest to have to establish a relationship with a teacher is probably going to help you do better and have a better middle school experience.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So you're a freshman in high school now. What's something that you miss about middle school, and any surprises that you found in high school?
Okay, one thing I totally miss about middle school is just being able to be more myself, because in high school, I won't say it's necessarily based on, groups or, social status, but it's a lot more, I feel like when you're in high school, it feels like you have a lot more eyes on you, if that makes sense. Whereas in middle school, I was a lot more connected with my friends and whatnot, but in high school, a lot of that connection, you have to bridge yourself out of school. And it really, being in high school, it really sets the stage for most people mentally, even including myself. It's just like, this is like the time to lock in, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it just really helps you keep your mindset focused on necessarily what you have to do in school and where you want to go for even after high school. And that really kind of gets you in an adult mind and that type of mindset. Whereas in middle school, I really miss, necessarily, you just being a kid. I feel like
the stakes are lower.
Yeah, definitely. It's just more relaxed. And even though I feel like a lot of stuff definitely happened in middle school that was crazy and whatnot, high school is just different ball game. Like, mistakes are a lot more penalizing, whereas in middle school, you can mess up every now and then, but it's okay because that's where your time is to grow. And that's where I kind of feel it was more beneficial than necessarily like high school to me, because then it feels like that standard's already set. So like you're already there. There is no more room to grow, if that makes sense. Or that's what the pressure feels like to me anyway.
Yeah.
I agree. I think if you're in a very strong middle school, which it sounds like you were, that we expect kids to mess up, because we all mess up even as adults, but it's expected in middle school to learn and grow. And I can definitely see how when you transition to high school, there's maybe an assumption that you've done that growing, and you have, but maybe not all your peers have. But the stakes seem higher. Because that assumption maybe isn't there anymore.
The bar definitely raised a lot transitioning.
And it's harder. The academics are harder, and you probably have to work harder to see friends who don't do the same activities, so that can be a hard transition. Maybe you have a bunch of friends who are doing one activity that you don't do, so you don't get to see them as much. It's just the ease of everybody just being forced, like salmon swimming upstream in the hallway in middle school, kind of goes away. I do believe that if you don't look back at middle school and have at least, one cringeworthy experience, you probably didn't do it right. You probably didn't take enough risks and learn enough. I think probably every adult you ask can look back on something. I was thinking about that recently with Halloween and Halloween costumes, and thinking back to a costume, a really ill-advised costume that I chose very happily back in middle school. So keeping in mind that, of course, you're not going to do it perfect and you don't want to do it perfect, if you're looking back at your middle school self, or you're talking to somebody about to start middle school, what is one practical piece of advice you would give them? And this is a question we've been asking guests at the end of all the podcasts.
That's a good question. But I'm trying to think, because I really want to give a good answer, not just something that's surface level or hits all the buzzwords. I don't know. I'm just, as a middle schooler, the best advice I can really give is just focus on who you want to become, not who you are. Like in middle school, if this makes sense, they kind of try to, the influence from necessarily high school and media, social media, that type of thing. It kind of pressures these young middle schoolers into trying to fit in or trying to do this or that. But I feel like if you just focus on who you are, obviously getting your work done, this and that. But if you just take a second to step back and reflect on who you are as a person, your characteristics, how you excel in one thing or the next, that really can pave the way for your career and maybe where you even want to go in life, just from middle school experience. To me, that's a crucial thing in middle school. If you're not focused on who you're going to become in the future, then you're just always going to be a step behind. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, so if you're a sixth grader, and I know that I said that was the last question, but I have one more. If you're a sixth grader and you're listening to Brody, who seems to have it all together and has given this tremendous thought and has really deep answers about how to do middle school the right way, and they're thinking to themselves, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just trying to survive the day. I'm just trying to make one friend, and this is really hard. What would you say to them?
Even though my answer did seem kind of, do this, to me, that's kind of where my answer from before kind of is what it's leading to, is that don't always feel like you have to be a part of the group. Just focus on who you are, and if if you have all these pressures, find who you are as a person. The whole point of middle school is just take the time and to develop and just do your own thing. I don't want to say go on autopilot, but just let yourself shine for who you really are. Don't even if you're say I need to find myself or who I am, you'll find yourself just by doing the things that you do. I'm trying to explain it in a way that's simple, that doesn't seem
It sounds like you're saying just put one foot in front of the other.
Yes, exactly.
And don't overthink it. Just do it.
Yeah, step through that door.
With a mind to becoming something, or maybe thinking about who you want to become as you're going through those daily steps.
Right. So when I was saying, when I was just explaining that, it's by just, taking that step through that door, you'll find who you are by the end of it. You know what I'm saying? You're walking down a trail, and then next thing you know, you're back. You're at the top of the mountain. Like it's just you just keep doing what you got to do, and then eventually it will all come to you.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you, Brody, and thanks to everybody who's listening or watching. And we really appreciate that you took the time to share your wisdom with all of the educators here and everybody who's listening to the AMLE Walk and Talk podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.